Good morning and welcome to the RationalFanz podcast. That is RationalFanz with a Z. We have quite the crew here this morning. Joined here by Evan Kruger,
K. Pasa,
Tim Conley,
What's happening?
Rhett Koblenz,
Yo.
and Nate Haynes.
How's it going?
Tim, this is the first week with us, and you are our senior NBA expert. What are some things we can expect from the NBA this season?
Well, I'd like to go around the table here and ask you guys what you guys think about who's going to be in the finals and whatnot, but I just want to key in on a few things first. First of all, let's just look at the Spurs roster. Their backcourt is loaded. I don't even know how you get that much talent in one backcourt. Like, who's all going to be playing back there? Aldridge, Duncan. You still got Diaw, who's a stud off the bench. Just an incredible team. Matt Bonner.
Bonner.
Amen to that. So, who do you guys have in the NBA Finals? Evan, we'll start with you.
Well, I mean, you can pretty much count on the Cavaliers winning the East. I mean, there's nobody in the East that can compete with them. The Bulls are going to be close, but I just don't think that they're going to be there this year. They have a pretty young / pretty old roster. I mean, Derrick Rose, we don't know what to expect out of them. And, I mean, what are you going to see? The Wizards and Raptors, they're kind of middleweight teams that will manage to win one game in a 6-game series with the Cavaliers. So I think we can count on the Cavaliers coming out of the East. The Spurs, their lineup is just too good to pick against them. And so I'm going to have to go with Spurs over Cavs in the finals.
Rhett, what are your finals predictions?
Well, at this point in the season, it's really, really early, so we can't quite get a good gauge on what's going to happen because, you know, we could see Derrick Rose stay healthy for once, and that honestly, I think if he does, then the Bulls have as good a shot as anybody out of the East. But like Evan said, the Cavs out of the East, they're kind of loaded. But I mean, it's just LeBron. But if LeBron can get a couple guys to produce around him, and if Irving and Love stay healthy, then the Cavs should have a good shot. I like the Warriors again. Honestly, they didn't really lose anything except their coach for a couple weeks, but. Coming out of the West, they'll have to get through the Spurs to do that. So, it'll either be the Spurs or the Warriors. We'll see.
Nate, what are your finals predictions?
Yeah, well, LeBron James. It is the LeBron James show in the East. He is the best and premier player in the NBA. But, we're not going to talk about LeBron all the time here. I mean, why would I do that? Anyway. I do think that the Cavaliers are going to come out and win the East this year. I want to see the Warriors prove it, though, in the West. I think maybe last year was kind of flukish because, they were shooting the ball really well. But if they get that shooting percentage going again, then, yeah, for sure they'll win the West. So I'm going with the finals rematch of the Cavaliers and the Warriors.
I'm going to say the Cavaliers in the East. LeBron James, just too good.
LeBron James. Here we go again.
They have Kyrie Irving and Kevin Love. But in the West, I'm going to be very, very biased here and pick the Oklahoma City Thunder. Last time the Thunder were completely healthy was back in 2012. They won 62 games and made it to the finals.
They got destroyed in those finals. It wasn't even close.
LeBron James.
They can still make it to the finals, though. I mean, in the West, you have the Spurs, who have a very talented backcourt, and that could be a problem because the Thunder don't have too many very good bigs. They do have Steven Adams, who isn't very high up there, but with the Warriors, you have Stephen Curry and Klay Thompson. I think it's going to be the Thunder there in the West. Tim, any thoughts here?
Well, I think in the West, it's just going to be maybe a 4-team race for who gets up there. With the East, it's probably going to be more. It's definitely going to be Cavs Bulls in the Eastern Conference Finals, unless it's the Pacers or the Hawks can somehow get over their mediocrity. But in the West, I do see maybe the Thunder do have a shot if Westbrook doesn't completely hog the ball and actually lets Durant do what Durant should do all the time.
Score buckets.
Score buckets. Westbrook is the only person that can actually shut down Kevin Durant.
That is one of the best things I've heard all week, Tim.
And then the Warriors, well, Steph Curry, I don't know if you guys watched his preseason, but, well, the preseason game they just played,
He
but
gave that dude a high five before the shot went in.
yeah, completely flicked his wrist and then turned around to the bench. That was ridiculous. I wish I was that good. But I see Spurs, Cavs in the finals. Best of 7.
In the West, you can't write off the Rockets either. They upgraded at point guard, if you will, to Ty Lawson. And if you think Ty Lawson could help the Rockets in any way, then they have a very high shot there, too. They got the 2 seed in the West, didn't they, last year?
Yeah, but the Rockets always choke somehow.
They were up 3-0 on the Clippers, weren't they? Or was that?
Choke.
Yeah,
God, that's awful.
Choke.
maybe not 3-0.
I think it was 3-1.
3-1, yeah.
Okay.
Still choke.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was bad. All right, we're going to turn to some MLB talk here. Last night, the Astros defeated the Yankees 3-0. Those 2 solo shots there by the Astros on the first pitch of the inning. Rhett, what are your thoughts on the Astros this year?
Well, the Astros have surprised a lot of people, you know, in 2012, 2013, and 2014. They lost more than 100 games each year. And the fact that in 2014 they can have kind of a bounce-back year and cut those losses down, and then in 2015 make the playoffs, that's a crazy turnaround. And, you know, I give credit to their fan base for sticking around through those tough times, you know, when they transitioned from the NL to the AL, which was the right move because they would be buried in the NL if they had stayed there. And then the Angels would be in the postseason, which, you know, that's not very good either. But, no, the fact that they could beat the Yankees, one of the most historic programs in the entire MLB. You know, Dallas Keuchel came into Yankee Stadium last night and absolutely shut down the Yankees offense, gave up only 3 hits in 6 innings. And that's the kind of performance that the Astros need this postseason from their pitchers. Keuchel looked sharp on just 3 days rest. You know, he only got 87 pitches last night, but, you know, they're working short rest, and they're going to need him again soon against the Royals. So we'll see how that series shapes up. But I also liked what I saw from the Astros offense last night, getting the 2 solo shots from Colby Rasmus and Carlos Gomez, and then another RBI from Jose Altuve, who just continues to smash the cover off the ball. He's got 200 hits for the 2nd season in a row, and the Astros offense is really good, and they can just keep up with anybody in the league. And they just need their pitching to keep strong and not give up runs, because they will score runs. They just need to let teams stay behind them.
I'm going to go around the table here with your World Series predictions. Tim, what is your World Series prediction this year?
I'm going to go with Royals and Cardinals. The Cardinals are the best team in the NL, obviously, and I just don't think anyone's going to be able to stop them, so I got Cardinals.
Nate, what is your World Series prediction this season?
Well, you know, my World Series prediction is pretty much busted. You know, I thought it was gonna be Yankees for the AL and the Mets for the NL, but you know, I wanted an all New York World Series, but I guess that's not gonna happen now. So there goes my prediction.
Evan, World Series prediction for this season.
Cardinals.
Rhett, what is your World Series prediction?
Well, mine's going to be, you know, probably a little bit biased because I'm a Cardinals fan. But, you know, Mason, don't give me the thumbs down. You just said the Thunder were going to win the West.
Cardinals.
I don't want to hear it, okay?
LeBron.
Yeah. Anyway, you know, the Cardinals won 100 games this year. And they, you know, really with the second man up on their roster on most of it, but that just comes from a good farm system. I think that the Cardinals will make it from the NL, and you know, I'm kind of hoping for a Missouri showdown between the Royals and the Cardinals in the World Series. But realistically, I think it's going to be the Blue Jays and the Cardinals going at it. Blue Jays just made their first postseason in 22 years, so that's good for them. And you know, the Cardinals are continuing to win, and it's just going to be interesting. But I'm going to pick Cardinals over Blue Jays in the World Series.
I agree with you on the Blue Jays. 2 or 3 weeks ago, we were discussing the Blue Jays, and I thought they didn't have a very good shot at anything, really, because I didn't think that they had a star pitcher, and David Price has definitely proved me wrong.
Well, yeah, all it takes, as we saw last year with the Giants, all it takes is one good pitcher to get you through. You can even work him in relief like they did with Bumgarner. So it'll be interesting to see how the pitchers fare in this year's playoffs.
For my World Series prediction, I am going with the Blue Jays. That offense is absolutely stacked. Josh Donaldson. And on the NL, I am going with the Chicago Cubs. They have to beat the Pirates tonight. They have to beat the Pirates tonight to even make it to a series game. But if they do, they face the Cardinals, who have had a couple injuries. Adam Wainwright is just coming back, which could be huge for the Cardinals. But Yadier Molina, I think he was hurt.
He's healthy. They've cleared him to play. So that's not a problem. Cubs are going down tonight anyway.
Let's not forget that they're the Cubs. So
That's true. 107 years. Sorry, Cubs fans.
goat.
Well, I mean, tonight's a pretty big night because now we get to see whether or not Back to the Future 2 was right about the 2015 World Series. So this is going to be pretty intriguing.
But the Cubs had the third best record in all of baseball. And only to the Pirates and Cardinals, their 2 first-round matchups, which is absolutely insane. But the Cubs were only 3 or 4 games back of the Cardinals, so it was pretty close there all season. And they only have to beat them in a 5-game series to win anything. All right, we're going to turn to college football now. Evan, what were some things in college football that caught your eye this weekend?
I know Rhett's probably going to want to talk about it, but I'm an Indiana fan, so I'm going to talk about the Indiana-Ohio State game.
I was actually going to try and stay away from that this morning.
Oh,
It's
really?
all yours. Go ahead.
Oh, awesome. All right, so let's break this down. You have Indiana, who's 4-0 but hasn't beat anybody, and Ohio State, who's 4-0, was ranked number 1 and hasn't beat anybody. And you kind of just look at the score and you think that game shouldn't have been that close. Ohio State just did not look like a championship team. I mean,
Except for Zeke Elliott. That was it.
yeah, second half, Zeke Elliott, he had a good game, but even still, the Hoosiers still had a chance to win it, and they threw an incomplete pass on 4th and goal with 9 seconds left, which was kind of disappointing for me. But I mean, you just look in the air, the Ohio State, their passing attack, they only outgained Indiana by 8 yards to Indiana, who I believe their starting quarterback got injured in the 3rd quarter.
Yep.
And so that's kind of embarrassing for Cardale Jones. He threw an interception. He did not look good. So Ohio State is really going to need to step up if they want to win any. I'm surprised that they're still number 1 in the AP poll, because that usually I thought they would move down to at least number 4 or number 5 after that, because that's just inexcusable to almost lose to Indiana. So that's what really caught my eye about this weekend.
It's just a thing that seems to happen in AP polls, where if you were the champion last year, go undefeated, you're preseason number 1, no matter if you lose, I mean, no matter how much you win by, who you play, you're going to stay number 1, which is kind of bad.
Well,
But-
now the AP poll doesn't matter anymore. That was what everyone based it off of until the end of the season, when the BCS rankings mattered, and the BCS rankings were pretty much identical to the AP poll. But now that we have a different ranking system from the college football playoff, the AP poll doesn't matter at all. Even in these first few weeks of the season, the rankings are just rankings until the college football playoff comes out. That's when it really matters. And Ohio State can get that turned around by the time the polls get released for the college football playoff.
I think that if we had the college football playoff rankings released now, I don't think that Ohio State would be number 1, because you have an actual committee instead of just computers that can actually give a team an eye test and say, what do they look like right now? And so I think that unless Ohio State gets some really huge wins, I mean, if they beat Michigan State, they're going to be in number 1, absolutely. But unless they can start beating these teams they're supposed to beat by a lot, then I don't know about them getting into the college football playoff at number 1, probably at least number 4. But
The AP poll is the only thing we have rankings-wise to base ourselves on, so it's kind of hard not just to go with the AP poll as what we would assume the college football playoff poll would be. Nate, what were some of your thoughts here in this college football week?
Yeah, this week was, we had a lot of almost upsets, especially in the top of the rankings. One game that was really surprising was Florida and Ole Miss. Ole Miss, going into it, Florida was ranked, 25th? And, Florida might put up a good fight, but Ole Miss will probably just win in the end. Florida killed Ole Miss. 38-10. I mean, Ole Miss looked horrible. I mean, yeah, the swamp is a hard place to play in Florida, but maybe we've been discrediting Florida too much. They're a team on the rise. They've got a good roster together. And as for Ole Miss, I don't know. Their win against Alabama was a little bit flukish, but a win's still a win. So we'll see if Ole Miss will be able to get back on track here in the next couple of weeks.
I think it's notable that Florida jumped from 25th all the way up to 11th in this week's poll, and Ole Miss dropped down to 14th. So if Florida keeps on their winning streak, maybe they have college football playoff aspirations.
All right, Rhett, I want you to rank the following 4 teams: Florida, Ole Miss, Alabama, Georgia. Florida beat Ole Miss beat Bama, and Bama beat Georgia. So does that mean Florida is the best of those 4 teams?
No, I would say Florida is not the best of those teams. As much as it pains me to say this, I think that Alabama is still the best of those 4 teams. Alabama just they always get annual talent, and that just comes with winning. And so they get players that want to come there, and they keep getting good ones. So, everybody says, oh, Alabama's starting to go downhill. Well, no, they're not. They're just not as good as they have been in the past. They're still a good team. So I'm going to put Alabama at 1, Florida at 2, Ole Miss at 3, and Georgia at 4 out of that. Georgia, I think, was a bit overrated coming into this season. Nick Chubb, he's a great running back, but you can't ride him the entire season. So, I'm just going to say Georgia is the worst out of those 4 teams. And, speaking of Georgia, another identical score to that Ole Miss-Florida game was Alabama rolling over Georgia 38-10 as well. Alabama got up early in that game with that huge block punt, which really swung momentum. And, they got up, it was 10-3 at that block punt. They got a block punt, return for a touchdown, made it 17-3, and it was 38-3 next thing you know. And Georgia just did not look very good. They looked lost against Alabama. So Alabama has not gone away despite that one loss to Ole Miss. So, you got to be careful for them lurking out there in the SEC because, the SEC gets extra consideration for whatever reason.
But the only way that I think Alabama gets in is if Ohio State, Michigan State, TCU, Baylor, or Utah, one of them trips up.
Well,
or maybe 2 of them.
TCU and Baylor have to play each other.
Oh,
so that'll
and Ohio State and Michigan State.
That'll take
So,
care of those teams for you.
and if Bama takes care of business, they'll be in the college football playoff as per usual with
Even
one
if you have
loss.
an undefeated Florida.
As per usual.
All right, Tim, what were some of your thoughts from college football this week?
Well, I don't watch a whole lot of college football or keep up with it. College sports are kind of not there for me. I don't know why.
They're so much better.
Hey, it's okay, Tim. It's just like me in baseball, not my strong suit. But I still pay attention during the World Series. So, I feel you, Tim.
Yeah, when we get down to college football playoffs, I'll probably have more to say. Maybe I'll know who won that week. Notre Dame won, right?
No.
No.
Yeah, let's talk about
Just
that.
kidding. I know
Notre
the score of
Dame
that game.
real quick. That was, Clemson did end up winning 24-22. That was a pretty sloppy game down there in Death Valley. Notre Dame turned it over. What was it, like 2 or 3 times or something like that, and they just put the ball on the ground a lot. And I don't think that was really characteristic of Notre Dame, but kudos to Clemson for really controlling Notre Dame on offense. And Clemson's linebackers looked really active and just physical. And I think a lot of times you just lack that from defenses now. But Clemson looked really good on defense.
Clemson had, I think, 4 turnovers there as well. That nice touchdown pass by Deshaun Kaiser there at the very end of the game. I don't know what the play call was there on that 2-point conversion. He just ran into 6 Clemson linebackers there who brought him down 3 yards short of the goal line for the 2 to send it into overtime. I have no idea what happened there. Another big game. In the Big Ten, you have 2 rising star teams in Michigan and Northwestern. Nobody could have expected Michigan with John Harbaugh to do so good.
Jim.
Jim, excuse me.
Well, I got another big game. You know, Wisconsin got beat by Iowa 10-6. That was a huge game defense-wise for Iowa. They held Wisconsin to just 6 points, and that was Iowa's last game as an unranked team. Now they're ranked 25th, I believe. But you know, the fact that they beat Wisconsin at Wisconsin too, that they made Wisconsin look very vulnerable. And Iowa is definitely going to be a team to watch out there in the Big Ten. But yeah, like you said, Michigan and Northwestern, both teams on the rise. You know, it's going to make for a very interesting season finale for the Buckeyes when they take on the Wolverines.
Nobody could have saw Michigan and Northwestern jumping to doing so well this season. Both Northwestern is undefeated, if I remember correctly.
Yep.
And Michigan has the only loss to now number 5 Utah, which at the beginning of the season we kind of thought Michigan, they lost to Utah. They might go 7-5, 6-6. But now that Utah is number 5 and Michigan is undefeated, you can see Michigan in the college football playoffs possibly.
Let's not get ahead of ourselves here, Mason.
Whoa. Even I know that's getting ahead.
Although you got to remember, you know, I mean, the Big Ten, they're better than they have been in recent years. But, you know, the Big Ten doesn't post necessarily, you know, all the better teams, you know, that like maybe the SEC does. And so maybe Michigan can do something. I don't know. We'll see.
One game that, you know, because of the Ohio State-Indiana game, we haven't really been talking about is Michigan State-Purdue. I mean, Michigan State only won by 3 points.
I saw the end of that game. I wanted Purdue to pull that one out.
And that it was reflected in the fact that Michigan State dropped from number 2 to number 4. So it hasn't been talked about as much because it wasn't quite as high profile as Indiana, Michigan State. But keep in mind, Purdue's only won 1 game this year, and Indiana was undefeated. So
that Purdue team is the same team that lost to Bowling Green a week ago by 7.
They've lost to Bowling Green and Marshall this year. It's not looking good in West Lafayette.
And they barely beat, was it Indiana State? Yeah, it's pretty impressive.
No idea how they held with Michigan State for that long. Beats me. We're going to turn to games of the week this upcoming week. Nate, what are some key games this week?
Yeah, I think so LSU and South Carolina. South Carolina isn't as strong as they have been in recent years, but you know, it's probably the toughest team so far that LSU is going to play. And so, you know, Leonard Fournette has another chance, you know, just to go out and add to his Heisman campaign, and excuse me, we'll see how many yards he racks up there. Michigan Northwestern, that's another good game too. You know, Northwestern gets a chance to prove himself, and well, so does Michigan. So that's a good game that I'm looking forward to.
Northwestern all the way, baby.
Tim, I know you had something to say on this one. What is a key game this week?
Well, I'm going to go with the Miami and Florida State game. Those games are always entertaining to watch and probably one of the few I watch every year.
If Miami is good, which they're not.
They're 3-1. It'll be a good game. Let's just put it that way. They always have back and forth contests, and usually Miami blows it or the other way around. One of them blows it at the end. That's all I have to say, but it'll be an entertaining game to watch.
Evan, what is a key game for you this week?
The biggest game is Michigan Northwestern. That game is going to be brutal. Those are two of the toughest teams in college football. They're just ground and pound. They're going to beat each other up. That's going to be an entertaining game to watch. And also another game that I would look out for would be Cal-Utah, because Cal jumped up. They're number 23 in the rankings, and Utah, of course, number 5. So that's a pretty high-profile game right there.
Yeah, one other game that I want to mention really quick too is California and Utah. Utah has been. Oh, I just said that.
Okay,
Okay,
that's
well,
fine.
let me expand on that. Okay,
Go for it.
Okay, anyway, California, they have Jared Goff at quarterback, and a lot of NFL scouts have been really high on him recently. And he's probably just overtaken basically all the college quarterbacks right now. He's been looking a lot better than Cardale Jones and Connor Cook, and so I'm looking forward to him facing Utah. So that'll be a fun game to watch.
2 weeks ago, before we closed the show, we had a debate on who should be the number 1 overall pick if you need a quarterback. Not a single person on this seat said Jared Goff out of Cal.
I might have. Just putting that out there.
Everybody said Connor Cook, Cardale Jones, J.T. Barrett, I think, was one. And then I think Christian Hackenberg was the other one.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
Jared Goff is looking to be the number 1 pick this season. Rhett has something to say here before we...
You didn't get my game of the week. Well, okay, I'm going to go with, it's been said already, but the Northwestern-Michigan game, like Nate said, I'm just going to expand upon that a little bit. Northwestern, they're 5-0, Michigan's 4-1. This is really the chance for Michigan to prove what they're made of by beating Northwestern in this game. If Michigan can pull this one out against the Wildcats, it's in Michigan, so that's going to be tough on Northwestern. But if they can pull this one out, I think they're a legitimate contender in the Big Ten. And, I think that if Northwestern pulls it out, then they're a legitimate contender in the Big Ten. So this is really the defining moment for both of these teams' seasons.
Michigan still has to play Michigan State this season. Am I correct?
Yeah, that's a rivalry. You
Okay.
can't give that up, Mason.
I was just making sure there. We're going to turn to the NFL now.
Oh, thank God.
I know Nate's going to start it off with some first thoughts here.
Yeah, so my first thought, let's head over to London. Dolphins, what is going on? I mean, you look like last year's and maybe a little bit of this year's Cleveland Browns. I mean, there is no structure in the organization. Your head coach, Joe Philbin, just got fired because he's a schmo. And Ryan Tannehill looks horrible. I mean, I think some of it does have to do with the offensive line, but I think a lot of offensive lines are struggling around the NFL too. And, Ryan Tannehill, he just, I don't know if he's lost some confidence or what. He's really struggling right now in Miami.
Because the Jets certainly aren't that good.
Well,
So
the Jets defense is good. Their offense kind of stinks, but still, I mean, Ryan Tannehill has kind of done this the whole season. So
Ryan Tannehill was supposed to be he signed that mega extension this season, and he's supposed to be a franchise quarterback. But if all this stuff about him in the practice squad is true, I don't see him as a leader saying, "Oh, be happy with your practice squad paycheck." And just basically bashing the practice squad there.
what a schmo.
I think that the other Ryan in the AFC East, Ryan Fitzpatrick, is the reason that the Jets are actually decent this year. Because they don't have Geno Smith, which is a good thing for Todd Bowles and his team out there in New York. They are looking much better than we expected them, and I think that's a result of not having Geno Smith as your starter.
Geno Smith getting punched could be great for the Jets organization.
I still think that was orchestrated by somebody in the organization, but that's all I'm going to say about that.
I just have one word for all of you. Kickers.
Oh.
Terry's the only one that did good.
Go ahead, Tim.
And Robbie Gold.
Oh, I was gonna say Robbie Gold.
Oh, okay. Well. Anyway, yeah, I think the majority of the struggles that kickers have gone through recently is because of the the way that the NFL has just changed the extra point. I saw this last Sunday, Jay Feely, who's a former NFL kicker. He tweeted that he thought that kickers were struggling because normally, or before they changed the extra point, kickers would go out there and on the extra point, and they wouldn't feel any pressure, and they would be able to focus on their mechanics and just their swing through with their leg. And now there is so much pressure on the extra point, and kickers, it gets in their head, and they can't focus on the mechanics, and they're more focused on I'm gonna make this, or I gotta make this, or I'm gonna lose my job. And so and that's why they're missing a lot of field goals now too, because they can't focus on what they need to do right. And I don't know, it's just the NFL kickers are just really struggling right now.
Could be a confidence thing with a kicker missing an extra point. He's like, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm gonna miss this field goal here too, when the field goal is actually closer than the extra point.
Well, I mean, it's not as if just the talent level in the kicker pool has just dropped dramatically since last year. I mean, the kickers, they're still the best in the world at what they do. It's just, I really think that one of the dumbest things that came out of the NFL headquarters was moving back the extra point. I mean, they wanted the kickers to impact the game more, and I guess they got what they asked for because these kickers are terrible. I mean, I only have to say Josh Scobie to prove my point. So.
Well, yeah, I think, I'm kind of the opposite of Evan. I think, even though it stinks to see my Minnesota Vikings kicker Blair Wall stink it up, it does make the NFL season a lot more exciting. It really mixes up the score, and it's kind of fun to see those. Those kind of oddball scores, like 18-16 or something, because, a team went for 2 instead of kicking the extra point.
I like to see those oddball scores there. I'm with you on the extra point getting moved back. I really like it.
I haven't seen a whole lot of teams go for 2. Like, if your kickers are kicking this terrible, like, why not go for 2? You're on the 2-yard line. Your kicker can't kick it straight down the middle for 30 yards, which is his job. I mean, what do you do during practice? You kick. What do you do during warm-ups? You don't even, stretch with the team or anything. You go out there and kick.
Do your job and get paid.
Exactly.
That's all kickers have to do.
Otherwise, they're just going to get rid of kickers, and here we are running 2-point conversions and going for it on 4th down every time.
Come 2020, we'll see a new rule. 50-yard extra points, and then all the kickers just quit, and then we get 2-point conversions and going for it on 4th and 37.
I know that kickers lost at least 2 games this week for their respective teams with Josh Scobie and the Jaguars kicker. I don't even know.
I believe his name is Jason Myers, if I'm not mistaken.
He missed 2 field goals to win the game.
Kind of
Technically 3, because he missed the one and the Colts called a timeout, and then he missed the same field goal after the timeout.
That's in a dome, too, so it's not like there's any conditions.
Well, the roof was open. I don't know if that had anything to do with it. We'll give him some credit and blame it on that.
Yeah, the open roof, I'm sorry. The sun got in your eyes 3 times.
Actually, the sun was on the other end of the field on his first kick, so.
All right, I'm gonna
2 times.
All right, I'm gonna change subjects here. Monday Night Football. What happened? Oh my goodness! I watched the highlights of that game. The ref pulls his flag out of his pocket. You can't see what I'm doing, but he raises his hand up to his head like he's gonna throw it. Puts his hand back, tucks the flag away, and the Seahawks win on an illegal play. That gets me absolutely heated, and I don't even like the Lions. Because the fact that the Lions should have got the ball on the 1-yard line, but they didn't call that play, that just makes me feel so bad for Lions fans who could have won that game, but instead, they're 0-4 now. And they don't look like a very good team, but they had a chance to beat that and put the Seahawks on the wrong track. But the refs screwed up again in Seattle like they did a couple years ago with the Fail Mary.
That's just one thing because there's nothing you can do. I mean, all the NFL does, they come back and they say, oh, well, we got it wrong, big deal. It's like, you've mentioned the Fail Mary, but there was another play back in I think it was the 2004 wild card, Giants, 49ers. They've had to throw, they faked a field goal, and they threw it, and the Giants receiver just got tackled, and they left their flags in their pockets, and then they said, oh, well, we missed the call, that's too bad.
Yeah.
And it's just something that you hate to see.
As a huge NFL fan, and NFL expert, it is so frustrating to see this. Even week after week, we see all these blown calls, and a few hours after the game, Roger Goodell sends his apology card to the team. Oh, sorry you lost. Suck it up. Better luck next week. Yeah, thanks for nothing. It ruins the game, and okay, it doesn't ruin the game, but it's just, I don't know. It makes it more frustrating, and fantasy teams are on the line, and you want to win those games, then Vegas, it messes everything up out there, what the score is. So
the nerds in the desert are always at work.
The nerds in the desert, yes, but it's human error. I understand that with the refs, but I don't know. It just seems like they have a lot of bias out there every Sunday, so I don't know.
As a pretty avid Lions hater, I was still mad that they didn't call that penalty.
Wait, why do you hate the Detroit Lions?
When did this happen? This is the first time I've ever heard you say that.
You are a Carolina Panthers
I hate the
fan.
Detroit Lions.
Is it just because they're another kind of cat, Mason? You just need to. You have no rationale for any of your opinions.
You are not a rational fan. I am sorry.
I'm hosting next week.
I'm Cal.
Yeah.
Sure.
All right, Evan, what are some other thoughts from this week's games here?
Before I dive into the Colts, as per usual, I want to talk about the Atlanta Falcons. Last week, I said that the Cardinals look like the best team in the NFL. They kind of choked this week because we just can't figure the Rams out. But the Falcons look so good. Matt Ryan looks like an elite quarterback, and Julio Jones is destroying everybody. It's not even close. I'm surprised that the Texans even got 21 points because they were shut out through 3 quarters, and the Falcons were pretty much saying, all right, we'll give you some pity points here. Then they had to rub it in their face by returning a fumble for a touchdown with time expiring to make it 48-21. They mopped the floor with the Texans. They look like a very good team, and their defense, which was so bad last year, they've just completely turned it around. I've been very impressed with the Falcons.
Yeah, Devonta Freeman, he's been a revelation in Atlanta. When you add him with Matt Ryan and Julio Jones, that is an extremely hard offense to stop. And their head coach Dan Quinn, he's they lack talent on defense, but he's got them revamped at least, and he's got a good scheme going down there, and their defense does have the ability to make at least some stops during a game, and their offense is almost guaranteed points every single drive. So Atlanta, they might be a sleeper team in the NFC. We'll see.
I mean, especially with Tevin Coleman coming back soon, they're going to have 2 very good running backs to choose from.
Atlanta's schedule might be the biggest cupcake in the entire NFL.
They're number 2 to the Panthers, all right?
They're in the NFC South. That's what it is.
NFC South got a pretty favorable schedule this week. They play the AFC South with the only good team being the Colts, and the NFC East with God knows what going on in the NFC East. You have no clue what's going to happen.
You are being extremely irrational, Mason. This is supposed to be the most rational podcast in the world.
Look at their next 5 games. You got the Redskins at New Orleans, at Tennessee, versus Tampa Bay, and at San Francisco.
This is getting out of hand.
Tim will agree with me. as a fan of a team in the NFC North, it's frustrating to, watch these teams, with these, kind of, schedules that are jokes, as an NFC North, well, Tim, you're a Bears fan, we have to play the Packers twice every single year, and, they always, blow us off the field. And, it's just frustrating, and, we also have to face, the NFC West, which is a pretty darn good division, and the NFC East is kind of not very good this year, but in past they have been, with the Cowboys and the Eagles. So it's just kind of tough.
Well, the first 3 games the Bears played, this schedule is ridiculous. Like John Fox coming in here, oh, I'm a new coach, time to put in my new system, and here we go: Packers, Cardinals, Seahawks. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? And then you look over here with the Colts playing a bunch of powder puff teams in their division. You got something to say about your powder puff division?
God bless the AFC South.
Amen.
I mean, come on. I know that we complained about the NFC West, needing to be rearranged because it was such a bad division. And, they did pick it up eventually. The 49ers, Seahawks, Cardinals all got good, and even the Rams. But, the AFC South is continually bad every single year. The Jaguars haven't been to the playoffs since, 2008? The Texans never have a... Yeah, well, probably longer than that. The Texans don't have a quarterback. They never have a quarterback. The best quarterback in their history is probably Matt Schaub, who, by the way, stinks. We got Tennessee. Well, they might have a little bit of hope with Mariota, but, they pretty much stink throughout their history, except for Aaron McNair. That guy was awesome. And, the Colts, they just win the division every single year. They could probably win it at 6-10 if they wanted.
If you could see Nate right now, he is using his hands more than 100% of the time, and that means he is super duper frustrated.
Well, I mean, divisions, they're up and down. I mean, the NFC East has been up and then they're down now. The NFC West a couple years ago was the best division in football, and now they're kind of down. I mean, it's kind of a natural cycle almost. I mean, if you look in the NBA with the West, I mean, a couple years ago, the West was just infinitely better than the East, but that's almost kind of balancing out now because you've seen teams like the Wizards and the Raptors kind of step it up. But I mean, in the case of the AFC South, you can see that the at least the Titans are getting better. The Jaguars have a decent defense. I mean, their defense, it's not a bunch of pushovers.
Well, Blake Bortles didn't look bad either on
No,
Sunday. So he's definitely changed, and he's definitely gotten better from last season to this season. So there's reason to hope that the AFC South will be actually decent, and the Colts might have to win more than 9 games to win that division.
Not this year,
No,
for certain. The
but
Colts are going to win it
maybe-
easily. But.
Maybe in the near future.
I'm going to turn to Evan here. I'm sure he wants to have this session. The Colts suck.
Hey, they
session.
won.
Yeah, they won second week in a row. They beat the Jacksonville Jaguars by 3 points because the Jacksonville's kicker is terrible. I mean, did you see the kick that he hit when Pagano called timeout? It was a solid 15 yards off of the upright. I mean, that's just
He
bad.
won in overtime. He was like right in the middle of the field. He missed a wide left.
It was
I
so.
don't know how.
Oh, it was terrible. And then, I mean, you look, Frank Gore. What's wrong with you? Fumble it inside the 5-yard line again. You almost cost us the game again. You did it against the Jets.
God
Did against the
bless
Jaguars.
The AFC South.
Yeah, but I mean, and the thing with the Colts only gave up 13 points, but Blake Bortles had a very efficient game. They gave up quite a few yards to him and on the ground to TJ Yeldon, so it's inexplicable to me how the Jaguars didn't get more than 13 points. Matt Hasselbeck, I mean, we shouldn't put too much stock in this game because Andrew Luck, of course, wasn't starting. Matt Hasselbeck had a very good game. I mean, he went in there, he did what he had to do to get him the win.
He didn't turn the ball over.
No, he didn't, which was kind of odd seeing a game without an interception here for the first time in the year. He had an efficient game, 282 yards and a touchdown. He played pretty well.
He managed the clock well. That was what I was impressed with, was how he managed the team and kept the game. He kept the ball out of the Jaguars' hands as much as he could.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's hard to do that when you're Frank Gore and then heading into the fourth quarter, you have 15 carries for 30 yards.
Yeah.
I mean, we're just happy that he didn't fumble it on that 22-yard run in overtime and cost us the game there. But, I mean, a win's a win, even if it is against the Jaguars and even if it is in the AFC South.
It counts in the win column.
Yeah, but I think the biggest story for the Colts right now, besides Andrew Luck and his shoulder and how's he going to respond to the criticism that he's seen recently, is their cornerback situation. I mean, they're just dropping like flies out there. I mean, Vontae Davis can only do so much, but help is on the way. I mean, Greg Toller is, I believe he's going to play Thursday, so that should be a big boost to their secondary. And, I mean, based on what we saw the Texans do against the Falcons, I'm not terribly worried about Thursday night.
What are we going to do with the San Francisco 49ers? Colin Kaepernick absolutely sucks. I was watching the 49ers game on Sunday, and you had the announcing crew talking about Blaine Gabbert on the bench. If Blaine Gabbert is your backup option and you're talking about bringing Blaine Gabbert into the game, you have problems.
Yeah, the 49ers win over my Minnesota Vikings, unfortunately, in Week 1. I think that was really, really flukish. The Vikings have looked a lot better, but as for the 49ers and Colin Kaepernick, I think that Colin Kaepernick just got really lazy. He's gotten lazy over the past couple years after that pretty good Super Bowl, not Super Bowl. We'll get to the Super Bowl run that they had. He probably thinks, I'm a superstar, I'm just going to go out here, pass, 10 times a game and, make 6 completions to the other team. So, it's just, I don't know. Everyone thought, well, especially, Ron Jaworski, he thought he was going to be the next, like, Peyton Manning or whatever. But, that's obviously not going to happen now.
I mean, you look, Colin Kaepernick, the reason why he's so terrible right now is because Jim Harbaugh's gone and he's thinking, oh, now I can win my way. But you can't win Colin Kaepernick's way because he's terrible. I mean, the great thing about Jim Harbaugh was that he knew how to squeeze wins out of Colin Kaepernick, and that's something that he did well. But now that kind of the Jim Harbaugh structure is gone and Colin Kaepernick, he thinks he can do anything, that's why he's so terrible because, well, he can't win his way.
Yeah, and this is another unfortunate situation where a team might find themselves needing another quarterback, and I'd say at least a good third of the teams in the NFL, they need another quarterback. At least someone who's subpar and doesn't turn it over like 5 times a game like Colin Kaepernick does. that just kills your offense, and your defense ends up being out there for too long, and they get worn out too, and It doesn't help, just the team attitude, going in week to week. And, unfortunately for San Francisco, too, they signed him to that huge contract. I think luckily they can buy themselves out of it. San Francisco could buy themselves out of it if they really wanted to in a season or two. But, it's just disappointing to see how bad he stunk it up.
All right, Tim, we're going to turn to you. What are some key games this upcoming week here in the NFL?
Well, here, I'll start. Tim.
It won't load.
Yeah. Well, let's see. We, one game that's a little bit interesting is the Rams and Packers. The Packers, they've just blown out everyone. The Rams, though, they've been up and down. If the Rams are up this week, I think they got a good shot at beating the Packers because Aaron Donald, Robert Quinn, and the rest of that Rams defensive line could wreak some havoc on the Green Bay Packers, subpar offensive line. And if the Rams put up some points too, that could be a pretty good game.
All right, Tim, key games this week.
Go with Seahawks and Bengals. Andy Dalton has just been tearing it up, and A.J. Green, thank God I have him on my fantasy team. But the Seahawks have been kind of up and down, and we've already talked about that Monday night game a little. But this could be a key game for them, and if they pull it out, if they pull it out, then they'll be on a high point going into the middle of the season, and if they don't pull it out, then it'll be hard for them to get over this.
The Seahawks are 2-2 and the Bengals 4-0. They're playing in Cincy. If the Bengals want to be taken seriously this season, they have to beat the Seahawks here. Rhett, what are some key games for you this week?
Browns Ravens. No, I'm just kidding. No, but I think any game involving a 4-0 team at this point is big because, I don't think that there's going to be anyone going undefeated this year. So we're just gonna have to see when those teams get whittled down to having losses. So like we've said, the Bengals, Seahawks, the Falcons, Redskins, Packers, Rams, Broncos, Raiders. Those teams that are 4-0, it'll be interesting to see how they do against some of these lower level teams like the Redskins. We don't even want to get involved in that. And the Rams, they're a mystery. We don't know what's going on with the Rams. They have the capability to be very, very good, but they haven't looked very, very good. They've looked bad at times. So it's just going to be, an interesting week overall in the NFL.
It seems like when the Rams are winning, they're doing some sort of trick play all the time where they're doing like a punt where this guy pretends to catch it and then it's on the other side of the field. They're always doing trick plays in order to win. Evan, what is a key game for you this week?
I think the key game here is Patriots at Cowboys because, of course, the Patriots will see if they continue destroying everybody like they did weeks 1 through 3. And, well, with the Cowboys, we kind of thought, all right, let's see if Brandon Weeden can be average. And he stinks. And so right now, we just want to see if the Cowboys can stop the bleeding. I mean, that's the most important thing right now. Because, if they go down 2-3, and I think the Giants are going to actually be pretty good this year. And surprisingly, the Redskins are 2-2 somehow. So,
yeah, and yes, that's pretty surprising. And it also looks like I'm going to be well rested for next Monday morning because I am not staying up for the 49ers-Giants game. That is a really bad Sunday night game. I do not want to watch Colin Kaepernick. Good night.
Well, who picked that game? It wasn't even a marquee matchup before the season started, before the 49ers started. Oh, we thought they were going to stink, but now we know that they stink. So who picked that matchup?
Well, none of the other matchups are really any better than that. So it would have been a bad Sunday night week, any game.
Bears, Chiefs, enough said.
We're going to have a quick closing segment. This was requested by a fan, and the segment is What the Heck? Except it was with a few more choice words in there. But we discussed struggling fantasy stars and whether you bench them, trade them, start them, or drop them this week. And my first star is Jonathan Stewart. What do you do with him? Nate.
Well, Jonathan Stewart, what the heck? What do you do with him? The Panthers, they are undefeated right now. And, they, whether or not, you want to, discredit their schedule or not, they're still undefeated. And, this week they have a bye. So, he's still on
they
the
have a
Panthers.
bye.
Yeah. That's what I was thinking. But yeah, so this week you're obviously gonna bench him. But I keep him around on your bench. If he's a free agent in your league, I'd pick him up. So
I think if you own Jonathan Stewart, maybe you try and trade him because maybe you can get a solid return on Jonathan Stewart, but Cam Newton is playing lights out this season, and they're going to continue to rely on Cam Newton the rest of the season if he continues to play this good. And Jonathan Stewart has a couple injury problems throughout his career, and he could be riding the bench for a lot of the season.
Do one of you four want him? I got him on my team. I'll trade you. Anybody want him?
Nope.
Mason, you just said you could trade for him. How about you? Take
I don't
him?
think I want him, really.
Mason, you might as well just put all the Panthers players on your team.
All right, Rhett, who is a struggling star that we need to watch?
Well, coming into the season, I was like, well, Andrew Luck, he'll rack up the points. But no Andrew Luck. throws a pick every single game. His first game without a pick was Sunday, and he didn't even play. And so I think we need to watch Andrew Luck because he's been struggling a little bit. He hasn't really performed up to what he's capable of doing that we've seen him do in the past couple years. He could turn that around at any moment, though, and become the best quarterback for fantasy. So it'll just be interesting to watch him. I'm going to start him because my backups are Marcus Mariota and Blake Bortles. My quarterback situation isn't the greatest. But, Andrew Luck is someone that you should keep around, and I would start him this week.
I think if you have Andrew Luck, you absolutely have to start him. You wasted probably your first-round pick on him,
That's exactly what I did.
and you have to start him.
For me, my what the heck player is Peyton Manning. Like, Peyton Manning, are you serious right now? Like, I wasted a good, solid pick on you, and you're like mediocre, like Jay Cutler style or something like that. I don't. What? Why?
I have no idea what's going on with Peyton Manning. If you have him, you might want to bench him if you have a better quarterback option.
I don't have a better quarterback option.
Then,
I really
then
don't.
you should probably start him.
Well, then Tim, what the heck?
What the heck? Another star that was drafted in the 3rd or 4th round of fantasy leagues is Lamar Miller. I had to start him the first couple of weeks because I had Arian Foster and Todd Gurley on my bench both hurt. But now with both of those back, he's going to ride the bench until I can see a solid performance out of him. But I don't know if I should trade him or hold on to him.
Yeah, the Dolphins are on their bye week too, and but I would get rid of all Dolphins fantasy if you have any players or their defense on your team. I've had the Dolphins defense in one of my leagues, and they've gotten negative points like 3 out of the 4 weeks they've played. It's just the factory of sadness down there in Miami. It's pretty sad. I wouldn't want to be a Dolphins fan right now, like my dad, unfortunately. But I would dump Lamar Miller if I were you.
I think the king of what the heck players right now is Brandon Cooks. I drafted him as my number 1 receiver because everybody was saying, oh, who else is Drew Brees going to throw to? Apparently nobody, because Brandon Cooks is getting 4 catches for 50 yards a week, and 5 points is not what you want to get out of your number 1 receiver. I mean, Larry Fitzgerald, who I picked up in like the 9th round, has done better than Brandon Cooks. And so, honestly, if you have Brandon Cooks like I do, I mean, I don't have a better option because wide receiver is absolutely the weak link in my team. But if you have a better option, bench him, trade him, do something with him because it's not looking good for Brandon Cooks.
But don't start him.
No.
In every single league that I am in, I tried to get some trade for Brandon Cooks because I figured a second-year stud in New Orleans with Drew Brees throwing to him, I figured what could possibly go wrong there.
Yeah, as a Vikings fan, I thought the same thing with Cordero Patterson. I thought, last year he was going to be a breakout star. He's going to get like 1,500 yards, 15 touchdowns, the next Randy Moss, and Teddy Bridgewater throwing all these rainbows to him. It's going to be awesome. Nope. I think with younger receivers, it's just hard for them to figure out the route tree. And, a lot of receivers, they don't really develop get a lot of those yards until their 3rd or 4th year. So
I think Brandon Cooks is droppable in those 10-man, 12-man leagues. Thank you for joining this show of Rational Fans. We'll see you next week.